Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the Winning Wednesday podcast. I am your host, Geneva Brown, and we're continuing our summer study on the book of Proverbs. We have about 3 more episodes after this one, and I do hope that you all have been enjoying the summer series with going through the book of Proverbs. Today, we're going to go through chapters 10 through 22. And of course, I'm not going to read all of it because we would probably be here all day. But what I want to do is just pick out some of those sayings that may be a little bit hard for you all to understand because through these chapters, from chapters 10 to 22, they're all just sayings of Solomon. Okay. So the way that he has designed them or laid out these particular sayings is he kind of says, if you're either foolish or you're either wise, or you're either wise or you're foolish. And he contrasts the two with the word but constantly throughout these particular scriptures. So we're going to start right at 10, and I'm just going to pull out a few from each one of the verses here. So starting with 10, chapter 10, verse 19, it says, sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongue. This means that the more that you talk about a situation, the more likely you are to act on it, which means the more likely you are to probably commit a sin. But if you stop talking about a situation, then you probably won't commit a sin. And we can easily identify with that when someone has gotten on our nerves or something has irritated us and we feel like we might need to do something about it. If we keep talking about it, we might do the wrong thing instead of just being quiet about it and really allowing God to handle the situation. Chapter 10, verses 26 says, as vinegar is to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so are sluggards to those who send them. So vinegar and smoke, they are both a representation of irritation and disappointment, because you may think that vinegar may be doing something like help whitening your teeth, but it's not. It's actually irritating it, and it's a disappointment to you. So it's saying the same is like a person, a sluggard person. That means a lazy person. If you are an employee or I'm sorry, not an employee, if you are an employer or a boss and you hire someone that is lazy, they can be a disappointment to you. They have irritated you because they're not doing what it is that you originally hired them to do. Chapter 11, verse 1 says, the Lord detests honest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him. A scale is like a weighing scale, how you weigh things. So God does not like a person who kind of tries to tip the scales in their favor because they're being unfair or dishonest, but he values fairness, and he delights in those who speak honestly and give out fair judgments. Chapter 11, verse 22 says, like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman who shows no discretion. So it's funny that he would use this illustration. What he's trying to do is to try to get you to picture or imagine a pig with a gold ring. It's a mismatch. Why would you try to make a pig look beautiful by putting this gold ring in its nose? And he's saying that's the same way that it is for a woman who doesn't have good morals or good values, who's not being discerning. It's a mismatch. They don't look as appealing or beautiful to you as they should. Chapter 12, verse 9 says, better to be a nobody and yet have a servant than to pretend to be somebody and have no food. So he's saying here, others may assume or think of you as a nobody, but don't worry about that, because you actually have wisdom, because you have accumulated so many things. Having a servant means that you have actually accumulated things so much so that you can't handle it on your own, that you need somebody else to come in and help you work. So don't worry about someone thinking what you're doing or what you're about. Your business is nothing or nobody. Don't worry about that, because there are so many people out there in the world that think they are somebody and they're actually nobody. Chapter 12, verse 27 says, "The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt." So the game that they're talking about here is like hunting for deer or things like that. So a lazy person does not finish their job. He doesn't do exactly what he intended to do. But if you are a diligent person, you will accomplish what it is that you set out to do. And then you will be able to enjoy what it is that you've been working for, or what it is that you have actually caught. Chapter 13, verse 8 says, "A person's riches may ransom their life, but the poor cannot respond to threatening rebukes." So here Solomon is saying, you may be able to save yourself with your money, with your riches, because you have it. And so now you have something to barter with. But who can save your soul? You're not going to be able to barter with your soul. But he says, you know what? A poor person will never have to have, like they say, a rich person's problems, because they don't have the money that you would actually need to use as a bargaining tool in exchange for your life. So in that respect, a poor person is actually in a better situation, because they won't have to give up their life because they don't have this wealth to give it up or be in exchange with. And then it also brought to mind the Beatitudes, where in Matthew chapter 5, verse 3, Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." He's saying, blessed are the poor. Those are the humble in spirit. So when you are poor in this sense here, he's saying, listen, you won't have to worry about giving up your soul, because your soul has already been given up to me. Your money, whatever you have, is not going to be able to be in exchange or in place of your soul. But a lot of rich people think that they can get the life that they want. They can reach heaven. They can barter with God because of the wealth or the money that they have. And Solomon is just warning you, hey, don't have that mindset. And then he says here in chapter 13, verse 11, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow." God blesses those who get money or obtain money in a way that is what he considers as the normal habit way. So we know that the normal habit way of earning money is by getting a job, working hard, saving, managing your money and things like that. But he is also saying here that Solomon is saying here that sometimes some of us, we get money in a dishonest way and we wonder why it has dwindled away. And it's because you didn't gain it by the normal habit, by working hard for it. So now it's gone. But if you do it in the way that God has designed for it, for us to do, and that is to work for it, and then putting little by little away, then you will see yourself have this wealth. Chapter 14, verse 4 says, "Where there are no oxen, the manger is empty, but from the strength of an ox comes abundant harvest." So in this particular scripture, oxen are a representation of people, and they are actually people within a church community. People in a church community, all of us, we come from different backgrounds, different experiences, and we all have different things that we are dealing with. So this is sometimes it's a correlation between the oxen. As they're working, they create a mess. So people, as they come into the new Christian faith, Solomon is saying, hey, there are people that are going to be coming in that are from different backgrounds and different things, and they're going to have different issues that they're dealing with. But us as a Christian, those that believe in Jesus Christ, we must gather as the strength of the community, the oxen of the community, and we must be willing to work with them and help them through their sins and through the things that they need to overcome. Because if we don't allow these people to come in with their messes, then the church will be empty if we don't allow them to come in. So he's saying we must be willing to work with these people. And this is really the model Christian mindset that we should have in our churches and in our Christian community. Chapter 14, verse 13 says, "Even in laughter, the heart may ache and rejoice, I'm sorry, even in laughter, the heart may ache and rejoicing may end in grief. Solomon is saying here, I want you all to be aware of a person who is always laughing, because sometimes they're really not laughing. Sometimes that laughter is a mask for the grief that they are going through. So we must be sensitive to people that we know that are going through things or have gone through things that sometimes, even though they are laughing, they're really still hurting inside. And that we, as Christian believers, we should pray that whatever it is that that person may be going through, that they allow God to heal them from those griefs that they may have. So we need to be sensitive to those and not just think that, oh, they're laughing, they are okay. We must also be praying for that person that they're able to get over or work through, not get over, but work through their grief. Chapter 15, verse 11 says, Death and destruction lie open before the Lord. How much more do human hearts? God can see far beyond what we can see. He can see the death and he can see destruction, but he also has a plan for death and destruction, just as he has a plan for our human lives. He knows all the deepest and hidden things in our hearts, yet he still has a plan for us. He says in Romans, all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord, who are called according to his purpose. He also says in Jeremiah that he knows the plans that he has for us. There are plans of good, not evil, to prosper us and to bring us into a good end. And I know I'm just kind of paraphrasing those scriptures, but God knows and he sees beyond what we can see. And Solomon is just telling the people here, God knows and he sees everything. But even in that, even in death, even in destruction, even though he allows those things to happen, he has a plan, and it's not a bad plan. It's a good plan for those who love him. Chapter 16, verse 1 says, To humans belong the plans of the heart, but from the Lord comes the proper answer of the tongue. This means that when we make plans, we do that because it's our human nature to do that. But when we allow God's wisdom to be a part of the plan, it's no longer our plan, but it's now God's plan. Chapter 17, verse 1 says, Better a dry crust with peace and quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. He says a peaceful home is much more better when they're when a peaceful home is better than a house where everybody is arguing. A peaceful home with a little bit of bread to eat, with just enough to satisfy you all, is better than to have all of this food and have all of the things in the house and everybody is arguing and upset with each other. Chapter number 17, verse 14 says, Starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam. So drop the matter before a dispute breaks out. He's saying this breaching of a dam, it's like water. Water can be very uncontrollable and hard to navigate. So if you are someone who's going to start a quarrel, be aware that you might not be able to control it, because you might think it's going to go one way, but it's actually not going to go that way. So go ahead and drop it before you really make a big issue that's hard to come back from. Chapter 18, verse 8 says, The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down in the innermost parts. You know how you say you want to get every single crumb, you want to get every single drop of that? Yeah, that's how gossip is. You want to get it all. It's so easy to be able to go down. It's also sometimes impossible to resist a gossiper, because what they say is so easy for you to take in. So he's warning the people, hey, beware of that type of person. And then in chapter 18, verse 24, it says, One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. This should be your motto whenever you're looking for friendships. Make sure you're looking for someone that's reliable, someone that is trustworthy, someone that doesn't have an ulterior motive to actually ruin you. And you should always see, do they have these God-like principles? That's how you will know that that is a true friend for you. Chapter 19, verse 10 says, It is not fitting for a fool to live in luxury. How much worse for a slave to rule over princes? This simply means here, if you want to be great, you must also be a servant. You would never think that a foolish person would be living in luxury. We would always think that a person who lives in luxury, they are wise. But a lot of times they're foolish people that are living in luxury. And we would never think that a prince would be someone that would be foolish, but a lot of times princes can be foolish living in luxury. So it says it's if you want to be great, then you must also know how to serve and be a servant. Chapter 19 verse 22 says, what a person desires is unfailing love, better to be poor than a liar. Value telling the truth, and that's how you will be loved. People love those who are honest with them and tell them the truth. So if you are struggling with someone, or whether or not you should say this or that to them, tell them the truth. They will love you for it better than if you told them a lie. Chapter 20, we're almost done. Chapter 20, verse number 5 says, the purpose of a person's hearts are deep waters. The purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. Solomon is saying here, wisdom, it's deep within us all. You must know how to reach within yourself and use it and apply it, because God knows the purposes that are in our hearts. And wisdom allows you to do things for the right reason and not the wrong reasons. Chapter 20, verse 27 says, the human spirit is the lamp of the Lord that sheds light on one's innermost being. That lamp means that you are a light. Solomon is saying God uses us as his light to shine the truth in the world. Chapter 21, verse number 9 says, better to live on a corner of a roof than to share a house with a quarrelsome woman. Solomon says a lot of different things. He repeats himself in a lot of different ways. A lot of things he says, especially when he's talking about being a good ruler, not lying, telling the truth. He uses a lot of different scriptures and analogies. He says it in different ways, but it's always the same point. So this is pretty much the same point as before, when he was saying it's better to just be in the house with a little bit of food and no arguing. This is the same thing. It's better to live in the corner of a roof and on the top of a roof, isolating yourself away from someone who is going to be continuously arguing and contending with you. No one wants to live in a house like that. And then chapter 22, verse number 12 says, the eyes of the Lord keep watch over knowledge, but he frustrates the words of the unfaithful. Knowledge is in God. And those who do not have knowledge, they don't necessarily understand who God is, because true knowledge comes from God. And so you will become frustrated, wondering why things aren't working right, why it didn't go the way that it was. And that is simply because true wisdom, true understanding of things only comes from God. And then his final saying in chapter 22, verse 16 says, one who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth, and one who gives gifts to the rich, both come to poverty. I'll read that again. One who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth, and one who gives gifts to the rich, both come to poverty. And he says, you gain nothing by oppressing the poor and by continuously giving to the rich. You gain nothing by making the rich richer. And you also gain nothing by making the poor poorer. That's really something for us to think about when we think about this great country that we live in. So that is the Winning Wednesday word. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see y'all next week as we continue our study in the book of Proverbs.